So, Logic, what is it? 72 hours since the news that Phil Spencer, quote unquote, retired?
Something like that. Yep.
Yeah. And since that, we have, there's that, who was it? It was Greg Miller from Kind of Funny who said he had heard, I don't remember the exact quote. I think it was, he heard that, maybe Phil was asked to leave. I don't know if I don't think that's the exact quote. I have to pull it up. Let's see here. Do you remember what the exact quote from Greg Miller was? Greg Miller on.
Yeah, sorry, I was checking the audio on the live stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said I've been past something. I'm not going to read it. That tells me that this was not planned.
Yeah, that Phil Spencer. So this begs the question. I mean, this goes back. And by the way, welcome everyone to this Brap rant. This begs the question. You and I talked about this earlier. I asked a question to you. I said, and I'll ask you again. Do you think, Logic, that this coincides with the Q2 2026 financials? Because we look at those financials, you look at gaming revenue being down 7 or 9%, content and services down negative 4%. And that's really, I was having a conversation with somebody who used to work at Microsoft, and one of the things that they said to me that kind of stood out was the content and service piece. Like that's your core business right there. That's Microsoft's core business, content services. That's down 4%. So I'm just wondering, like, if that was kind of the nail in the coffin for Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond. What do you think, Logic?
I mean, yeah, I mean, definitely could be. I mean, it's been a momentum gathering snowball, right, rolling downhill. It started. I mean, it started before the business update. It started with the business update, really. In that push to start doing things, that they had, I believe that they had previously been resistant to. That I think for a very long time they had been, pushing back on or shuffling their feet or insisting that, you can't do that. Gamers will be pissed off. And then we saw like the snowball like steadily gather momentum throughout 2024 into 2025. And then we saw, COD go into Game Pass, which I think was a thing that they had been resistant to for a while. We saw the price increases left and right. We've talked over the last couple of years of how we just gradually, continuously saw things that said to me that there were things that had been taken out of their hands. And so, when that type of leadership gets erected, my belief that, the new Game Pass tiers were something that was basically dictated to them because there were lots of things in there that like didn't make sense, except for a bean counter, right? So those types of things will tend to also go hand in hand with people being put on timelines, here we are.
So do you think you think there might be there may have been a timeline with Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond to really kind of turn the ship around then? And then you think about like the I don't know. I want to go back to you mentioned the 4 games thing. I know I'm kind of a little bit all over the place right now, just thinking about like piecing together everything that's happened. You go back to the conference, the press conference, or not press conference, but the all hands on deck meeting with Matt Booty, Sarah Bond, Phil Spencer, where they felt the need to address this. This is going to go, Logic, this is going to go hand in hand with kind of my frustration with the new regime change, new leadership, is that there was that rumor going around that Xbox first party games are going to go to PlayStation, Nintendo, And there was a lot of like chatter on the internets, a lot of people on social media, a lot of people on Reset Era, on Reddit, talking about this. And people, some of the Xbox fans were panicking, and they just felt the need to go out there on stage and create this big event, right? This big press event, this big press release, this big YouTube video, just going out there and just saying, hey, you know what, guys, here's what's really happening. And I felt like that was more lip service to the fans. And I just never understood why they did that. Like, just keep your heads down and just focus on executing on whatever it is you're trying to execute on. To me, that's been the biggest. That to me has been the biggest issue with not Microsoft, but Xbox in particular, is the constant pivots, the lack of execution, and just the just over talking, over sharing stuff. I think it was nice at times for Phil to kind of give us a little bit of inside baseball, but sometimes it was a bit too much to their own detriment, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a causality driven by the same thing that we're seeing today, right? With this regime change. The Tom Warren article says that the reason this thing was scrambled and put together on Friday was because it was supposed to be announced today, but it started to leak, and IGN was going to run an
Yeah.
article. So they were like, "Well, we gotta pull the ripcord and do it now." And that's supposedly the same causality behind the business update. That word started to get out, it started to leak, and so they needed to come out and make a statement about it, which is just hilarious. We go back over how their Achilles heel is this constant need to have this relationship with fans and influencers and content creators, and in an era where leaks are a thing. And I haven't listened to the Todd Howard interview. Apparently he did an interview with Kind of Funny Games Daily, and Greg Miller asked him about his feeling on leaks and things, and I'm like, and again, working working in a space where what I do for a living is about keeping secrets. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me that you allow this weakness in your in your information security of having these people inside the veil who are not employees, who have not signed NDAs, who are under no legal obligation, and you allow them to have access to information, and you have to believe that some of them are maneuvering and doing things to probably get access to information that beyond what you've allotted their access. So you have this weakness where things are going to leak, driving you to do things as big as, like, look, if you have to get on your own self-hosted podcast with one of your own employees as the podcast host, right? That's a thing. But the notion that you have to replace a business unit CEO on a Friday because of your own behavior is
That
just
is,
ridiculously inexcusable.
I gotta be honest with you, like, I can't recall, and I'm sure it's probably happened, but I can't recall recently where that's happened. Like, to me, that just speaks of culture, right? Like, to me, that speaks to, like, there probably isn't some level of accountability or fear, if you want to use the word fear, right? And I more accountability that leads to fear, right? Like, hey, if you do this, if you break NDA, if you go out there and spill the beads, it's your job. You're in trouble. But like the 4 games, the games that were that was leaked. Like, you're right, you talked about that, and then the fact that Phil was supposed to be let go on Monday, and then it gets leaked to IGN. IGN's going to release this article. It's like, I'm telling you, this reminds me of the Washington Commanders. This is like Dan Snyder era Washington Redskins, Washington Commanders all over again for me. Because I remember I think, and I imagine that when you don't have a solid culture, or you have a college, maybe some level of toxicity within that company culture, that these things happen where there's leaks. There's no loyalty. I mean, you hear it now with with the Verge article with Sarah Bond. Some of these former Xbox employees, or I don't know if it's former or current. I got to look now at the article. Let me see here. Oh yeah, some Xbox employees I've been speaking with saw the writing on the wall, right? So they're talking about things that have happened. Um, let's see here. I thought there was something else about she was difficult to work with. I don't know. I guess my point is logic is that, and I'm gonna say it reminds me of the Dan Snyder era with the Washington Redskins, Washington Commanders. But there was a lot of stuff that leaked out of that organization because of just the kind of culture they were running. It was a free for all. There was no accountability. It was a very toxic environment, and it was just it was Bush League. It was fucking Bush League, and I feel like this is Bush League. The whole like Xbox leadership thing under Phil Spencer. Don't get me wrong. Like he's done some good things. He obviously saved Xbox after the Donnie D debacle and the reveal of the Xbox One. But I mean, honestly, like when hear people say things about Sarah Bond and that the this is an Xbox. That marketing campaign wasn't really something that resonated with some people internally there. People weren't happy about it. And then this potential leak of Phil Spencer leaving on Friday, we don't see, where else do we see this logic? At least in the gaming space, we certainly don't see it from Nintendo or Sony.
No,
It just seems very Bush League. Yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
we have examples right in other places in tech where there's firm leadership, right, who takes a hold of things like this. And look, yes, does Apple have leaks? Certainly. I would say the vast majority of Apple leaks are controlled leaks, right, because they go to Gurman. But you have leaders who take control of these things like Steve Jobs, where Steve Jobs would tell two different people two different things about a product, and then if he saw the headline about the one thing that he told like the one person, and both things were erroneous, right? But when he saw like the headline for the one thing, then he knew who the leak was, and that person would get called in and they would be terminated.
Yeah, that's accountability. I don't know, man. I'm just, yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, there's been, I mean, because I guess because part of what I do, well, I don't know. I guess because part of my job involves cloud technology, and and I've studied Microsoft for a long time, and Azure's number two, and I kind of watched, right, and blogged and wrote about the whole time period of like and listened to Paul Thurrott and Mary Jane Foley and the rise of Azure. Like, there's been part of me that has been deferential to Satya's leadership. But obviously, I am well on record about how all of the consumer-facing product stuff has left a bad taste in my mouth. Because I had a Zune, I had a band, I had a dozen Windows phones. I've been on tablet PCs since 1999. I've been through, I've been on tablet PCs through like Windows XP, right, through all the different operating systems, the different versions, 2-in-1s. I've had a Microsoft Surface, and and all of these. When I look back over, like, I don't. And yes, the big thing that we used to say about Satya is after the Microsoft stock had stalled for so many years under Ballmer, under Satya was the first time in years that the Microsoft stock started moving. And obviously he's a huge part of the company being $1 trillion company now, but I just, I don't know. I mean, at least the consumer facing part of Microsoft, like, he's not going to have a very deferential legacy, when he leaves. And like, a lot of these things are going to be looked at as failures. And it looks like, more and more every day, just despite despite everything bad that we've said, negative that we've said about Xbox over the years, and those were negative things that were justifiable. I mean, it looks like he's, making decisions that are going to teeter Xbox in the same direction, where it's going to be yet another failed Microsoft consumer business. And I mean, I think for Microsoft, greater, the writing has been on the wall for a very long time that they need to pull an IBM and stop being a consumer facing company and just be an enterprise company, an infrastructure company.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, they haven't been they haven't been good in the in consumer products. They had they had some success as it relates to the Xbox with the OG Xbox on the Xbox 360, but post Xbox 360 they really haven't had success. They've lost market share. Um, but but again, like we talk about like some of the leaks, and you give the example of Steve Jobs. I mean, in the Verge article, um, you know, uh, Tom Ward saying like, hey, some Xbox employees worry that the new that Sharma, and I forget Sharma's last name now. Oh, I'm sorry, Asha Sharma. Sharma's her last name. Some Xbox he says some Xbox employees worry she'll force AI to everything Xbox does. Like so people are just putting that out there to Tom Warren, and this is part of the problem. And I think this speaks to a bigger culture issue at Microsoft or at Xbox. You know, that you have folks there internally that are okay with just sharing things like this. These internal concerns, and I'm not saying it's, and I wonder sometimes if it's done in malice. That some of these folks feel the need to go out there and share some of these concerns to kind of put it out there. She's hasn't been in the job for 72. Well, she's been in the job for 72 hours now. But I just think it's interesting that here we go again. Like you have people there that are voicing concerns to media outlets, and then this is kind of like classic Xbox over again. Like right, like something comes out, and then it's either it's IGN or The Verge that's reporting on it, and then just snowballs from there. Right. Then the other media outlets start talking about it, and then the pundits start talking about it. The YouTubers start talking about it, and it just seems to snowball. And granted, that was some of that early knee jerk reaction from some of the fans, given her AI background recently at Microsoft, was that, oh, is she gonna inject AI into Xbox? And she does address that though, in her email or on the Microsoft blog. She talked like that they're not going to flood the ecosystem with soulless AI slop. She did say that. But yet there are Xbox employees that are worried that she'll force AI into everything Xbox does. Also, some concern that, and this is again per the Tom Warren, The Verge article. What I missed it here. Hold on a sec here. Oh, that the other concern is that she's been appointed by Satya Nadella as some kind of executioner of the Xbox console. Her memo doesn't suggest that, but there was an article, Games Radar, Seamus Blackley, founder of Xbox, he thinks that she may be brought in to sunset he believes that she's probably brought in to kind of sunset the Xbox brand, not necessarily getting rid of gaming under Microsoft. Maybe it becomes Microsoft Gaming, but he said as a palliative care doctor who slides Xbox gently into the night. So I don't know logic. I guess just it just seems just the coverage of this and the conversations just seems very much of just reeks of some of the Bush League type stuff that we saw during the Phil Spencer era, in my opinion.
Well, I think the main thing is it's harmonious with what we've expressed this whole time, right? Since 2020, really, is that it reinforces consumer uncertainty. And in consumer uncertainty, there's things that happen, such as consumers don't buy your console because they're not clear on what the plan is. And this is right back where we are. I mean, literally, there was a moment in time, there was the crack of sunlight through the window when this whole thing started happening on Friday when they put out these statements. And then within 24 hours, because she spent all Saturday on Twitter, right? That uncertainty, which was, there were seeds of that already kind of placed in those emails. Though, I mean, the one thing those emails said is they said, the return of Xbox, focus on great games. And so I think people were momentarily inspired to confidence about that. But there were other things in that email that said games live everywhere. They're bigger than a single platform. And so people were like, what does that mean? And then obviously I think people are putting too much weight on her AI background. I can't remember. I wrote in the Discord that I hang out in that she is not an AI SME. And that, I mean, I take that from what I've seen of her. She's a marketing, sales, and product person, and so she can speak to AI in terms of trying to encourage people that it is of value, and it's something that they should want. But she's not an AI SME from a technical perspective. I think she will focus on scaling the business and getting it to more users. And I think again, people are also hyper focusing on scale, thinking that scale means numbers. Scale can also mean efficiency, Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, right? And so what I absolutely think she's going to do is she and Booty together are going to render an organization that produces the same amount that they produce now at a minimum, right? I'm saying this is their minimum objective. Their minimum objective is produce the same thing that they produce now at less cost. So that's the first thing that's going to happen. And then if they are able to do that effectively, then they will look at, how do we increase the numbers on that? But that increasing the numbers may not be more games coming to core gamers. It may not be more games coming to core gamers on core hardware. It may be games going to mobile, as you suggested, Facebook, right? Animal Farm or Farm Animal or whatever the Zynga thing was, back in the day. It may be, and I think this is a thing that they need to do. It may be games going to APAC, right, which is the growth region of the world. But I don't think they're going to be more things coming to you. Like, look, you're not gonna get Forza Motorsport back, right? They're not going to do a heel turn and reconstruct turn 10, I don't think, and start banging out Forza Motorsport and having it get back to the day where we used to get a Forza Motorsport it used to be like the Olympics, right? We get a Forza Motorsport every 2 years and then a Forza Horizon every 2 years. I mean, maybe, but I don't suspect that's what's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is what I pointed to last year with all of these statements that we think our competition is TikTok. And even though it was kind of everybody saying that, the ones who were saying it the most loudly were Booty and Sache. And I think now you have the third musketeer in the room who's going to be saying that, which is Sharma. And I think that's going to be their priority is how do we take on this attention-oriented economy when our biggest threats are OnlyFans and TikTok, right? Which is what is in the Matthew Ball report for people who have read that. And if you haven't read that, you should go read it. We take them on by producing a lot of content, and we got to do it at low cost, which means we got to produce a lot of content, not by, in a way that is not by hiring more people.
The other thing that was interesting about the Verge article, Logic, was that, and I'm starting to wonder now, Logic, if there's just, I don't know, maybe a level of dysfunction at Xbox. I say that because, again, I'm reading this article. Most of the current and former Xbox employees I've spoken to in recent days are relieved that Bond is leaving Microsoft. Like, what? Here we are airing dirty laundry, right? And so now it's just not a matter of the execution of whatever it is the strategy is of the brand of the product. It's all this other bullshit, right? It's all this other stuff. People didn't like Sarah Bond. I learned from multiple sources that Bond has been tough to work with, and build a team structure that meant if you didn't follow the vision or question it, you were out. Most of praise her. They did actually give her some praise here. Most of praise her ability to strike partnerships with companies and developers, though. But still, I mean, but now that's out there now. That's out there.
Yeah, I mean, I want to stick my toe in the door, right, and say, first of all, I think 51% of that sentiment that's being expressed there is Tom Warren, right, being very selective and very cherry picking about what information he's putting in this article. And
Mhm.
let me say first and foremost, and I'm just going to be blunt about it. And if you want to excoriate me in the comments, you feel free to. I absolutely believe that this article was motivated by one of three things: either racism, misogyny, or access, and a desire to maintain access and a desire to be inside the fold and continue to get insider information. Because there's been several articles from The Verge that have been positive about Sarah Bond and everything that was going on in Xbox. And then all of a sudden, and in no place in this article, at least that I've seen from the things that you scrolled through, I haven't seen anything about any negative thoughts about Phil Spencer. And I'm like, we've heard the same thing about Phil. We've heard the same thing that, like, if you express a difference of opinion or a not getting with the program, that then Phil didn't want to hear from you. But everything that's in this article is all about Sarah Bond. And I find that very, very unusual and very suspect.
Yeah, that's a great point because I mean, for as much as I didn't agree with Sarah Bond's "This is an Xbox," um, and the push of you don't need Xbox hardware, everything's an Xbox, and the campaign they pulled out, the campaign they rolled out that I thought was kind of cheesy. This is again, this is the Xbox campaign. I mean, like that's a great point. I mean, there's no. I mean, I haven't seen any articles that talk about Phil Spencer. If anything, I've seen articles praising some of the great things he did for Xbox, like saving Xbox during the Xbox One generation, right? Post Donnie D. But Phil, I think, is just as responsible for a lot of these snafus, a lot of the issues and challenges that Xbox has today. But you're right; like he's not even mentioned in this article or any other article that I've come across.
Yeah, except in a positive light, to rah
Yeah,
rah and pom pom Phil Spencer.
yeah, and it just this seems like they're kind of throwing her under the bus a little bit, kind of like scapegoat. I mean, Detective C's brought up a great point. Like the idea of like Xbox everywhere. That's actually something Phil talked about years ago.
Absolutely.
Sarah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so, I mean, but Sarah was the mind behind this is an Xbox. But the idea of everything's an Xbox really started with Phil Spencer years ago before Sarah Bond ever arrived to Microsoft. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Logic.
I mean, how long was Sarah Bond at Microsoft?
Like 3 years, 4 years. I don't remember.
No, she was there longer than that because she was there back in the late teens. I mean, at a lower position, right? Because one of her earlier positions was like she was head of Xbox partner programs or something, which is where she got a lot of her experience, like working with international studios and things in other regions and other countries.
Yeah, I don't remember Logic, to be honest with you. Yeah, Nate says in the chat they're blaming her for something she didn't even come up with. She was just told to enforce it. I mean, yeah, Nate. I think she was obviously driving a lot of that, some of that vision that Phil Spencer, some of that groundwork that he laid down years before.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
my issue with she comes to Xbox in 2017, and I'm like, so she has a grand total of 8 years, and she had never worked in gaming before, and so she had a grand total of 8 years of experience. Literally, we have two people on the GLT with a combined over 60 years of experience in the gaming industry. But yet, the article that Tom Warren writes today is one that says it was all Sarah Bond's fault. And seems to co-sign on the notion that the right answer, the acceptable answer, was to bring in yet another person who has even less experience in gaming than she does. I mean, so I'm sorry to ask the question to contribute to you being demonetized, but literally, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, I think many of the people in the chat are kind of agreeing. Like Marco 81 says, Sarah was the fall guy by design. Yeah, I mean that's yeah.
I mean, in a, you know, I've already called it out on Twitter, um, which I'm not supposed to be on, but I did call it out. I mean, and my huge problem after all of the run-ins and all of the fights that I've had with the Xbox community on Twitter, it is absolutely pathetic, and you guys are absolutely just intellectually bankrupt that many of you who were running around waving the green flag that this is an Xbox, everything is an Xbox. Why can't you understand that the Asus ROG Xbox Ally is an Xbox? It's an Xbox because they're allowed to, you know, they own the brand. They can dictate what an Xbox is. There shouldn't be any confusion. Like all of you guys who were pom-pomming that, right? And dancing the mystic witch doctor dance around the freaking bonfire. Today you're rallying around this article by Tom Warren that it was all Sarah Bond. It's disgusting. It's pathetic. It is intellectually diminutive. It is ridiculous. And it is indicative of the inability for those members of the Xbox community to have an original thought in their head and to allow that cabal, that set of Illuminati, to continuously dictate to them what their opinion should be. And
Yeah,
and it's
and yeah.
and it's going to continue because they're now telling you to approve of this new person. And I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. I mean, when I say
I
benefit of the doubt, yeah, go ahead.
man.
Go ahead, Brett.
No, I don't look, I wanted to as well, but this weekend, like the stuff on Twitter, the stuff like with people are asking her like something about exclusives. Someone brought up the question about exclusives, and she's like, I hear you. Again, we talked about this. Like, don't reply. Don't reply to the don't reply to to the fans on social media. Like stop, like put your head down, deliver great content. That's all you have to do. I don't understand the need to interact with the fans. Don't do it. It doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. We've seen this for the last 13 years. It doesn't work. But then saying I hear you. I mean, like that's the problem. And then again, now you have the media saying, new Xbox head, listening to, discussions around exclusivity with fans or something. Like again, it starts getting this like media coverage that they don't need. And then I also think like her just saying I hear you. I just think that potentially sets up a scenario where someone might think, or even Xbox fans, and this is the crazy thing, Logic. I've actually seen Xbox fans talk about like bringing exclusives back after they've been pom-pomming exclusives being bad for the industry, which is batshit crazy. But I've seen that. But responding to these fans who are asking about exclusives, saying I hear you, like I just think that could set up maybe false expectations with fans. Um gosh, and then I'm hearing, I heard this today, Logic. I heard that there's a there's a new strategy in place. And I'm like, oh, here we go again, another strategy. like there should have been a strategy in place from the get go. Like I don't understand. Like I don't know. The instability, right? The in the behavior that I'm seeing again on social media. She was talking to, and I won't even mention his name, some idiot content creator. Who's being sued, and you probably know who I'm talking about if but she's talking to him and having a conversation with him about gaming. She's talking about playing was it Chrono Cross or Chrono Trigger? Maybe it was Chrono Trigger. And I just feel like it's just like here we are again. The conversation started around, oh well, she's not a gamer. She should be in this role. And it's like, but why does she need to go? Why do you have to parrot her out there in front of, your fans and people on social media to prove that she's a gamer? Let her work speak for itself. It's just classic Xbox. Saying too much. Let me grab these super chats here. Gaming Ledger with the $5 Canadian says, every day I wonder why the Xbox brand ever lingered as long as it has. What is the point of dragging it out? Sega did it right and just pull the plug. Yeah, I don't disagree, Gaming Ledger. I think at this point, like, the Xbox should just be a third-party publisher. Oh, they are a third-party publisher. Just get out of hardware. People don't want Xbox hardware anymore. I think Gary Whitta said it best on I think was it the XCast? I just forget the show he's on.
No, the XCast has been retired. That was Kind of Funny Games Daily.
That was, thank you. Kind of Funny Games Daily. Thank you. He said it's basically a niche product. I will say this, Hap, though. I think you brought up a great point that it does appear that she is being scapegoated. There's nothing about Phil Spencer.
I mean, it's just preposterous. If you've ever taken a math class and ever taken a class in logic, like, that objectively representative mismatch, like, tells you like that it's just an unsound foundation of a hypothesis. That the person who has been in charge of the brand since 2013, 2014, that there's no blame applied to him in this article, and that it is all heaped on Sarah Bond. Like, that's ridiculous. And then and then there's no attribution. Like, so theoretically, what we've been working on is the assumption that Phil picked her as the heir apparent. She wasn't at Matt Booty's level. When that email went out in 2022, when they had the games canceled, and I think this was the email that theoretically came out before the 12-month plan, I think, was briefed that summer. And, you started seeing the responses coming back from Sarah and Booty about, well, how are we going to, like, what are we going to do for the holiday? Like, what's the content? What's the pipeline? Sarah Bond was not at Matt Booty's level. She reported up through someone. But she was still being asked in the email, which tells me that Phil was showing her deference, right, to a lower level, I'm sorry to use the term, but subordinate, right, to get the house in order. And so she was elevated to his old position as president of Xbox. As far as we know and as far as we can tell, that has been Phil who identified her. Right? And there's nothing in this article. So if you're going to write an article like this to put the blame all on her, I expect to have some traceability on attribution in terms of, well, if Phil didn't anoint her to be the heir apparent, who did? Like, if she was so disliked, like again, you're saying she was disliked, but somebody picked her to be next in line. So I don't know if when I've picked a person to kind of fill some of my shoes, either behind me or to offload some of my responsibility, and I hear that they're not liked, then I work with them, I mentor and coach them, but I also let the people know who I'm hearing this through the grapevine that, like, you guys need to get with the program, right? You guys need to understand what's going to happen. You guys need to understand that I'm not always going to be here. Okay, there's things you don't like. What are those things? Let us know so we can figure them out. But part of it, but again, benevolent dictator, right? That doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you that you're right and she's going to change. What you may wind up hearing is that, no, there are some things you need to understand about, like, where the business is and what's going on. But I facilitate building that relationship. I don't just let that fester and set them up for failure. Again, there's no conversation about that anywhere in this article.
Yeah, there's not. You know what's interesting too is that even the IGN reporting, right, and they covered the Verge's article that the marketing campaign offended many Xbox employees internally, tied to the wider Xbox is everywhere strategy. Again, but that is a strategy that's a Phil Spencer strategy. It's not a Sarah Bond strategy, right? You see, this is and again, this is the part of this is the issue with Xbox now, right? Like, we don't have these conversations about Nintendo, about PlayStation, like we do about Xbox. We're not talking about games as it relates to Xbox because they just laid off, and I'm going to say they fired Phil Spencer. And again, I do believe, I think logic, and I said this early in the show, I do think that those Q2 financials came down, and Amy Hood or somebody was like, no, we're not doing this anymore. We've just spent $100 million on acquisitions, and please, for the crying out loud, if you're going to have a conversation with me, stop bringing out the fact that fucking Forza had 50 million unique users, and reply with how many games what's the best selling Nintendo game of all time. Actually, I can tell you that fucking Mario Kart 8 sold like 80 million copies, and that's actually revenue that we can actually look at, something tangible. We don't know what the ARPU was for those 50 million or so unique gamers that played or tried fucking Forza Horizon 5 or whatever it was. Yeah, but logic. This just this just feels like this is just. It's funny. I shared the story with you earlier. Like my son's on a travel baseball team, and one of the dads is a gamer. He plays on everything. Right, has a Steam Deck. Legion Go. He's on Game Pass PC. Plays PC. Plays PlayStation. Everything. Right. He walks in practice with the Xbox sweatshirt on, and I said, "Hey, that's a nice looking sweatshirt." And he looked at me and goes, he's like, it's over, it's done. And he's shaking his head. And I'm like, oh, and I didn't realize he really followed the news like that because he's not on like social media or anything. But he said to me, he's like, yeah, this is same old Xbox. They're done. And it kind of feels like that. I mean, Kotaku wrote an article, the death of Xbox. Oh, I mean, on Friday. And I don't know, logic. Maybe I'm overreacting here, but this just is like, I go back to the Bad News Bears, the Dan Snyder era Washington Commanders. This feels like that. Just more dumb shit that Xbox is doing. This article about Sarah Bond, people now looks like they're, to your point, I think they're using, kind of throwing her under the bus. But again, like people being offended by the Xbox Everywhere strategy was being pushed by Sarah Bond. It's like, no, that was a Phil Spencer strategy. And it's not talking about the future of Xbox or what games are going to look like or what the production pipeline is going to look like. And I think this is self-inflicted too. They have consistently switched strategies so much, right? I think we all agree, like when it comes to PlayStation and Nintendo, I think we know what to expect from them, right? We know there's a level of consistency, and I just don't feel like we get that with Xbox. What we get is a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and I mean we should be clear, right? This regime change constitutes yet another strategy shift. So since 2024,
100%.
it's been only 4 games. Starfield and Indiana Jones aren't going. I would never say that any singular title wouldn't go to another platform. There's no red line. Indiana Jones on PS5, Forza Horizon on PS5, Play Anywhere. We're going to do like a premium console, Windows, big picture mode to now, which is, and now all the people who've been telling you that for 2 years, none of them are going to be around. We're putting new leadership in place. February of 2026. Like 30 days, less than 30 days after the developer direct, and in the 3-month run up to the summer showcase in June.
And that's the thing. There's with Xbox, there's so much drama, right? It's like watching a poorly ran sports franchise.
It's Melrose Place.
It is Melrose Place. No, but it's like watching the Washington Commanders or like watching the Cleveland Browns.
Like Major League, the movie.
Yeah, like me. Well, they eventually got good at the end of the movie, but yeah, no, it's like the Cleveland Indians in Major League. Bartender, Joe needs a refill. No, I mean it's and you're right. Like it's what, a month after the after the is it a month or about a month after
Well, I
the
said
last developer direct, right?
yeah,
Or
less
than a month.
less than a month because it was like the 20 something
Yeah.
of January, so it's been like it's been
So
about a month.
so less than a month, right? Less than a month, and we have this. So we're not even fucking talking about the games anymore. We're talking about this now, and now we're speculating about them throwing Sarah Bond under the bus. You know, we're hearing that maybe Phil Spencer was fired. You know, and now we're and by the way, like somebody getting fired after all those years, that speaks volumes. I hope people realize that. Because as much as we used to talk about a lot of the challenges facing Xbox and questioning how Phil Spencer still had a job there, right? Like, he's gone. So at some point, like leadership said, like, we can't do this anymore. And again, I said this earlier, Logic. I think this goes back to the Q2 2026 financials. When your core business model is down -4%, holy shit, that's a problem. Then you got to make up that Activision nut. What do they spend on acquisitions, Logic? About 100 billion?
100 billion plus.
Yeah, and they gotta get that ROI, right?
Yeah, I'd love for the cast to. I'd love for the chat to cast Xbox as the players in Major League. I'd like to know who's Willie Mays Hayes,
who's Serrano,
who's Dorn,
who's Dorn, who's Dorn. Oh my goodness, who's Harris? Hey, who's Ricky Vaughn?
Yep. Yeah. Who's Wild Thing?
Matt Booty.
I was thinking Matt Booty was I was thinking Booty was Dorn.
Oh my god!
Right, he's the aged player who keeps failing upward and getting right sticking in there.
Yeah, puts Vaseline in his chest, hot sauce up his nose.
So I can't remember who was in chat. Aaron Walsh, I think, pegged a really good insight, which is, Sarah Bond is the new Don Matrick,
Yeah.
We like the media and Xbox fans, they've been blaming things on Don Matrick for over a decade. Now for the next decade, they can blame Sarah Bond. Is right? What is the pathology?
Well, that's what's going to happen. They're going to blame Sarah Bond. They're going to love Phil Spencer. You know, they're going to love the new Xbox CEO. They're never going to question any of their strategies. They're just going to acquiesce, as Eric Jackson used to say, to anything and everything Microsoft tells them. Like that, and I honestly think, Camp, I think that the fan base is part of the reason I think Microsoft's in the state that they're in, because they never push back. They never push back. I want to play something here quickly. This is Gary Whitta. This is a great commentary here by Gary Whitta. Play this real quick.
Goes all the way back to the Xbox One. They never survived. They never recovered. They were in great shape with the 360. They pissed it all away with the Xbox One. As Phil himself observed, that was the worst generation to lose because it was the one where people started building their online libraries and started feeling embedded in an ecosystem. At this point, honestly, the one thing that's kind of keeping me engaged with the Xbox, aside from the handful of exclusive games that are on Xbox and Game Pass, which I love, is just the fact that I'm just always kind of been an Xbox person since the beginning. I like the controller. I just like the vibes. You know, I like Xbox, right? I like it slightly better than PlayStation. But honestly, recently, the way things are going and reading the tea leaves, you're seeing these layoffs, and you're seeing like there's a lot of like hardware sales obviously are in the tank. Like there's questions about is there even going to be another traditional generation of Xbox hardware, or is it going to be something else? Are they going to pivot into this? Well, it's a platform now, but we're not going to make the hardware anymore. This is an Xbox, which is silly. An Xbox is an Xbox. Anything else is just.
Can Gary Whitta just scream that very loud for everyone to hear? Like, we know what an Xbox is.
Something that happens to have a web browser built into it that can stream certain Xbox games. If you're falling for the this is an Xbox things, you are exactly the kind of marketing sucker that marketing people love. It's not an Xbox. But anyway, that's another conversation. There's obviously plenty of money to be made in the video game industry right now. So
Logic. I love what Gary Whitta said there. And that is part of the problem with that with the Xbox. Many of the fans of the Xbox community. What Gary just described.
Sony's can just do very well. PlayStation 5 is killing it. Look at the Switch 2. They're gonna make billions on that thing, right? Switch 2 already.
Hey, Logic, real quick. One of the things that kind of is always a head scratcher for me. And I often have conversations with people on Twitter. They always talk about the future of gaming, and I just had someone bring up the Forza thing, 50 million unique players. What's the most game PlayStation Nintendo's ever sold? It's like, okay, well, why are we cherry picking those two little things there, right? And to Gary's point, like if we look at the overall health of the console business for both Nintendo and PlayStation, they're not nearly having the challenges that Xbox is having. Their console business is very healthy. We know this because we've seen the financials, right? But let me finish playing this clip here.
The biggest console launch ever. The gamers are out there. So, but the Xbox is increasingly struggling. Like I've spoken to game developers that will tell you that when a game comes out multi-platform, the number of copies that sell on Xbox as opposed to the other platforms is trivial. I look at certain games on my dashboard, and I think like these kind of like weird quirky games, and I'm like, how many people are even going to play this on Xbox? Like, it's a very small market, right, for a niche game, and then you've got essentially what is now a niche platform compared to the other ones, right? Like, sooner or later, developers are going to start saying it's just not worth porting these games over, And so I honestly worry a little bit about, like, I'm already in the back of my mind starting to think about like the mental process of like transitioning over to PlayStation, because that, if you ask me.
All right, Logic. Any thoughts on Gary Whitta's comments there?
Yeah, I mean, he echoed the same thing that I've been saying for a year. That from day one, I said that everything as an Xbox thing was insulting. It was talking down to consumers. It was talking to them as if they were stupid. And to me, it was offensive. I spend, if I'm on a piece of hardware that I've spent $1,000 for, right, like my Apple devices, and you're gonna tell me because ha ha ha, gotcha. If you use my app, your high end expensive device is now an Xbox. Like that's just dumb and ignorant, and and like I said, speaks down to consumers. I'm like, if you want to be a headless app, if you want to be an app centric service,
but Logic. But the problem is the fans ate that up. They enjoyed being talking down to and treated like they're idiots.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's the problem. The Xbox fans ate it up, and because they like to be treated like fucking idiots. Like I'm not gonna be nice about this anymore. They like to be fucking abused. They like to be fucking. They will listen to anything and everything Microsoft shoves down their throats and never push back. And like Gary said, like you're the kind of sucker that marketing likes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I appreciate that he echoed that sentiment, because not a lot of people approached it with that insight. Like it's always a thing to in the gaming conversation to either gloss over marketing and not treat it as if it is and like look, marketing is not product, right? And I separate those two. I personally, from a hardware perspective, have no problem with the Xbox Series X. It's a fine piece of hardware. Put games on it, right? Have your the Xbox problem is they have not made a truly great video game this generation. They've made some solid video games. They've made some video games that are sevens, right, for the majority of the gaming community. That for people who are big, huge fans of that particular genre, maybe they're an 8. But they haven't made a truly generation-defining great video game this entire generation. And so, that is like their problem,
Yeah. No, that's actually a huge problem. And Gary was saying, I'm wrapping my head around like leaving Xbox and transitioning over to PlayStation. I mean, that was me, 2 or 3 years ago. Wrapping my head around the fact that like I wasn't going to game on an Xbox console anymore. And that my only engagement in the Xbox ecosystem was going to be via Game Pass. That I, look for almost a quarter century. My favorite controller was the Xbox controller. Whether it was the Xbox controller S, I didn't really care for the Duke, the controller S, the 360 controller, and today's Xbox controllers, and then the Xbox, the Elite controller. But now I'm looking at like now I play with the DualSense Edge, and I'm like, you know what, this is actually a pretty good controller, and I don't even think about it anymore. I'm content.
I mean, for me, it's been such a weird flip.
Let me.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
One more thing, and back to your point, the Xbox Series X is a great fucking piece of hardware. It is a shame. It is criminal that they have not taken advantage and made a game that really takes advantage of that hardware. Right? And so like when I said this last week, like when we spent that $500, like many of us are spending that $500 because we want gaming experiences that we can't get anywhere else. I'm sorry, like accessibility for me, like, yeah, that's a nice value add, but that isn't like why I buy a $500 box. Like I bought the Series X. It eats monsters for breakfast. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. Let's go. Let me see what the next Halo is going to look like. And then they fucked Halo up. Let me see. I mean, this generation has been a total gap for them. And this is just like this whole announcement logic, this announcement and everything that's happened this weekend, her interacting with fans, the media coverage. It's like, this is the shit show that's been Xbox. I'm used to it now. I don't think it's going to end well for them. I really don't. Unless they just put their heads down, focus on making great games. I think they'll be a good third-party publisher because they own some pretty big franchises. But I do think Logic. I think we'll see some consolidation of studios. I know you talked about that, but I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted, but
no, keep going. I was gonna make a comment about my feelings about the controller, but yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I think that at some point, you said this earlier. Like this leadership change is another strategic pivot for them, and so that's yet another pivot in 2 years. I mean, how many pivots they've had in one console generation? It's just like there's got to be like, I believe there's just got to be some consistency and stability and accountability. I just don't see that with them. But go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. You were going to mention something with the controller.
No. We'll keep going. That's a derailer for that tangent.
Yeah, I just Logic. I don't know, man. I'm just it's almost like I hate to say we told you so, but like we told you so. And I think there was probably a part of me that was like, even though I could read the tea leaves and I would hear things that were going on behind the scenes there. And now I'm hearing that they're putting together another strategy of some sorts, or something's happening, maybe another game plan or something. I'm like, here we are again. I know how this movie ends, and I can look to two other companies that are in the same line of business. They're putting out similar products and they don't have these internal issues. They don't have these issues in delivering products that consumers want in mass. And Gary's right. It's a niche product. Gary said it. He said he's talked to developers and they've questioned about putting games on the Xbox. That's a problem. I mean, Logic, Phil didn't even make it to the 25th anniversary. I mean, does he get like a invite to the 25th anniversary party?
Yeah, I mean, and on that point, he's clearly shown out the door, right? But again, the Tom Warren article has nothing to do with this person who has been at Xbox, who's been head of Xbox for 12ish years. It says nothing about the fact that there was so much internal, there was so much internal willingness to see him gone at the top that they didn't even have enough respect for him to let him stay to the 25th anniversary. Look, things happen in corporate environments to manage and work around things like that. Like, very easily, at other corporations, you bring an Asha Sharma in, and outwardly you tell everyone that Phil's still in charge, but internally the reality is that she's running the show, and then you let him stay till the 25th anniversary. Like, by the way, all this thing about, like, Phil's remaining on to be an advisor and Sarah's remaining on to be an advisor, just so people understand, that is very often, 50% of the time, that is corporate speak for their severance package, and how long their benefits last is that amount of time. Right? That gets translated in the PR office to they're staying around to be a quote unquote advisor for an equivalent amount of time. Because that's the amount of time that legally they're on the payroll, and there are things that they can be, like, that they're bound to not say, in other legal structures are in place. So,
Wow.
I mean, again, they could have done, like, things like that, but they didn't even have the respect, right, to stay around, to allow him to stay around.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, again, Phil's not going to be at the 25th, or he didn't make it to 25th. Like, that was shocking to me. Considering the amount of time that he spent there. Let me grab the super chat here from the Gaming Ledger. $2 Canadian says, "What strategies left? They've tried them all." Yeah, that's a great question. I think the only strategy left is, I think, just eventually transitioning out of hardware. Let me grab this other super chat. The Gaming Ledger with another super chat. Thank you again. Appreciate that, Gaming Ledger. Says, "I equate Xbox fans now like fans of a team that is going to relocate. Every Xbox strategy shift is like a new owner promising new stadium." That's actually a great analogy. Like the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, Xbox is like the Raiders. No offense to you, Donna Brown, if you're listening. He's a Raiders fan. Yeah, I just don't have any I don't know, Logic. I look at Xbox now and I'm just like, they're a third party publisher. They own Activision. They own Minecraft. And I just shrug my shoulders. Nothing about what they're doing just really excites me anymore. And it's crazy. I never thought I'd ever be at that place with Xbox. Because I was an Xbox Live beta tester. Xbox had a kind of I think Gary maybe mentioned this in the video, had this kind of cool factor to it. And to me, it's lost that. Divisive Gaming says, "You watch your dirty mouth. Never speak on the Raiders." Look, I'm sorry if I offended you comparing the Raiders to Xbox, but I do see some similarities.
Oh, they got a new head coach, right? Do they have was it Kubiak's kid coming over
Yeah,
from Seattle?
yeah. He's there. Clint Kubiak, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know, Logic. What else do you think about everything that's kind of transpired the last 72 hours before we wrap up here? If you had to put a bow on it.
I mean, the whiplash for me is the 24-hour span between. Oh, okay, I get it. I'm willing to and again, I'll go back to when I said in my Twitter post, she for me she gets the benefit of the doubt. That's me saying, look, Phil did a bunch of stuff. I'm not counting those things against the new person. The new person hasn't done anything yet, right? So I'm not going to hold everything as an Xbox right on her shoulders because that wasn't her. But the whiplash being from that moment to her already starting to stack up a set of her own L's that she does own because she's now the CEO. Like it's kind of amazing to me. Like, and this is over the weekend. Like, you're literally not sitting at your new desk, which you don't even occupy till Monday morning. But already in the span of 20, for the first 24 hours, 72 hours, you've already, like in my opinion, created a bad perception, set a bad image, and overly exposed yourself for no reason. No reason. My central theme would be the tendency to overpromise and underdeliver, because now you've created this appearance that there are things that you're going to do, that you're going to return to exclusives, that you're going to bring, a hyper focus to great franchises back. Halo, Gears, Forza. You're telling people that you're listening to them. And I mean, again, let's compare those two things. You bring in yeah, go ahead.
Why why are we at this place a quarter century into the existence of Xbox where they need to tell you we're listening to you? That's a problem.
Yeah.
That is the problem. Like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I put it on the shoulders of the company, but I also want to also make it clear that I'm gonna put a lot of this on the shoulders of the fans and the consumers also, because you guys again rah and pom pom for this stuff, not understanding that there's a ton of people that it doesn't resonate with, and that you're therefore going to continue to lose market share and continue to become fewer and fewer people, and therefore not get the things that you want. Because the money's not going to be made for you to get the things that you want.
Well, I mean, that's starting to happen, and they need to wake up, because it's happening right now.
Well, I mean, it's been happening. That's why there's only 30 million of them, and they're 9.85% of the market, right? But they didn't recognize that. They were just willing to scorch that earth, right, and make fun of the people who were complaining until now there are only 30 million people on their console.
Well, and the other thing too is, to your point, like you say, it's happening. I mean, look at a lot of the top games that have skipped the platform. I mean, if Gary Witt is talking to developers, and developers are telling him, yeah, like it's trivial, like how these games sell on Xbox. That is not good feedback from the development community. And so you need to understand, like, those things are going to affect you. Like, I never thought I'd ever say this, Logic. Like, in good faith, I could not recommend an Xbox to a first-time console buyer. I'm just gonna do it.
No, like absolutely, no, absolutely. Okay, I'll. Yeah, I couldn't even. I would, if I went back like 6 months, right to a year, I would say, even in this generation, I've said, look, I wouldn't say this to their face, right, in this way, but basically, if you're a non-discriminate consumer and you really don't give a shit about the quality of the games, and you really just want a game, and you just want the Golden Corral all you can eat, then sure, buy an Xbox, right, and play a bunch of games, because that person doesn't really give a shit, right? But if you but if you want a console where there's going to be great experiences, and on top of that, now you have access to the most games. So I always do this thing of dividing it in thirds, right? So just call each platform owner has a third of the titles that are available. So if you buy a Nintendo, you're going to have access to one third of the titles. If you're going to buy an Xbox, you're going to have access to one third of the titles. Although I would call that one third, minus a certain percentage now because all the titles that skip Xbox. And if you're on PlayStation, you're going to have access to PlayStation games and Xbox games, which is 2/3 of the games that are going to be available. So if that's your concern, then buy a PlayStation. And buying a PlayStation is probably what is the default for a lot of people today.
Yeah. Let me grab the super chat here. Hidden Sir with a $5 super chat says, "This is truly the year of Xbox in the most surprising way possible." Yeah, it's I think it's unfortunate. Like, we may look back at this generation and we may look at, like, we may remember Xbox for the turmoil, the it's for games, the Sarah Bond stuff, being thrown under the bus. This is an Xbox. Knowing that internally people at Microsoft or Xbox didn't really like that marketing slogan. We're going to look back at Phil Spencer getting fired, not making it to the 25th anniversary. We're going to look back at the major pivots that really hurt the hardware, the console, right? Instead of looking back and being like, holy shit, do you remember Halo 5? Or not Halo 5. Remember Halo Infinite? Well, that's not a good example because they botched that release. And don't get me wrong, like Halo now, multiplayer is actually much better. But unfortunately, it just doesn't have a lot of active users at the moment. But I think it's unfortunate that we'll look back at like a generation of turmoil for Xbox than a generation of excitement and fond memories in terms of exclusive games that took advantage of the Xbox Series X hardware. Like, we're not gonna have those conversations.
Yeah, and just as stuff is continuing to develop on Twitter, this whole thing of like, I mean, I see a lot of people saying, oh my God, I'm finding out Sarah Bond was the one responsible behind the "This Is an Xbox" campaign. I'm gonna say that people who are surprised by that today are don't listen to this podcast, but also are radically uninformed and should again listen to this podcast to be educated. Because I said when this thing came out, I said they had an all hands. This is before the business, or I think this was before the business update. I can't remember exactly where it was in the timeline, but I said they had an all hands, and Sarah Bond came into the space, and she went around the stage, and she touched a bunch of screens, and she said, "This is an Xbox. This is an Xbox. This is an Xbox." The notion, the concept, the philosophy that this is an Xbox was not hers, but the pushing of that as an ad campaign, yeah, that was on hers. But that was also because that was what she understood Sache wanted. So again, my reading of the record of Sarah Bond was that the girl did everything that was asked of her, including going out onto the Bloomberg Tech show and getting shot in the face right after the Tango GameWorks and Arcane Austin closure, and being ambushed by that reporter asking her, how are you guys, saying you're basically this great company and saying that there are these great games coming out, and then in the face of that, you guys are laying off all these people and shuttering these studios that you guys have acquired when those decisions weren't hers. So again, I get kind of really flabbergasted by the content creators, and I'm not talking about the people who make mistakes. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But there's literally people out there who are supposed to be content creators who are theoretically more informed than everyone, and their role is to make sure people have access, who have the information, who are just like just missing stuff, like I don't get. Which also brings us, well, when you say it's fine, which also brings us to the point of clarification on the news that I see going around about Sony Group corporate reorganization today. But we can talk about that when you're ready.
I mean, it's not even remotely the same thing. That'd be my only comment on that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I do want to mention one more thing here, Logic. Bender String says, "I miss Mech Assault. Why didn't we ever get a sequel to that?" I thought we did. I thought there was a sequel to Mech Assault. Mech Assault was great though.
That was the thing with like the big controller that cost like $150 or something like that for the whole kit.
No, that was a Capcom game. It was Steel Battalion.
Okay.
Yeah, Mech Assault was a PC game they ported to Xbox. One of the early Xbox supported, like Xbox Live supported games. But I do want to go to this article here, and I mentioned this earlier, but I think this is, I want to bring this up again. Xbox is being sunsetted. Again, this is from Seamus Blackley. If you don't know who Seamus Blackley is, you're not a real Xbox fan. But if you don't know who he is, I'll let you know. Seamus Blackley co-created one of the co-founders of Xbox. And I'll read this again. Speaking of GamesBeat, Blackley said, "Xbox is not a core part of Microsoft's all-encompassing AI push, and so is being sunsetted. Drafting in Sharma, who Blackley points out came from Microsoft's AI team with no gaming background, is further evidence of the company's true strategy," he claimed. "They don't say that, but that's what's happening," he went on. "I expect that the new CEO, Asha Sharma, her job is going to be as a palliative care doctor who slides Xbox gently into the night." Part of the problem here, according to Blackley, is that Microsoft head honcho Satya Nadella believes that AI will subsume games like it will subsume everything. And that spells the end of traditional video game business, much of which Microsoft owns. I gotta be honest with you, Logic. That wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me if even if the Xbox, like, it would surprise, like, even if they don't, like, if Microsoft doesn't, I don't think they will completely abandon gaming, but it wouldn't surprise me if they drop the Xbox brand and just become Microsoft Gaming. And that's it. At some point. But I thought it was very interesting article, interview with Seamus Blackley, again, who's one of the co-founders of Xbox. All right, Logic. Any last words before we wrap up?
No, like I said, I did want to do a very quick rundown of the PlayStation stuff. Just really quick.
That's right. Yeah.
So, like, I just want to put this on the record for people who joined the chat because you may not have seen the tweet. So, since this morning, there's been this report running around that there is some new person being promoted to head of Sony Corp. And since this morning, there's been a ton of bad reporting, maybe deliberate attempts. I'm sure certain content creators are trying to skew this into something it is not. That person is not, they've been linking what's happening with that person with Totoki. That person is not taking over for Totoki. They are elevating to a position where they will report to Totoki. So they are taking over. So I can't even remember the guy's name. His last name is Tanaka. He is taking over as head.
Kenji Tanaka. Yep.
Yes, he is taking over as head of Sony Corporation. Sony Corporation is the LLC name for the Entertainment Technology and Services reporting segment within Sony. So GNNS, or Game and Network Services, is Sony Interactive Entertainment. Music is Sony Music Group and Sony Music Entertainment Japan. Pictures is Sony Pictures Entertainment. ETNS is Sony Corporation. Imaging and Sensing Solutions is Sony Semiconductor Solutions. So all of those business reporting segments have some company name that is used publicly facing that is Sony something or other. Sony Group Corporation is the parent organization that is the corporation that all those business segments report up to. So, by the way, this guy moving into that position has been reported in investor documentation since last October. It was reiterated again on the 5th of February. Right. So again, this is what, 2.5, 3 weeks later. None of this is news. For some reason, American journalists have caught wind of this. American content creators, American influencers have caught wind of this and are reporting this as if it's something new. It is not. So again, this person is taking over the ETNS business. ETNS includes TV hardware, which is now moved to a joint venture with TCL, audio hardware, imaging. So that's the cameras, Sony Alpha product line, cinema and pro cameras for filmmaking, broadcast products for live TV and their software, and their mobile division, which is Xperia. So that person will now become a Sony Group business CEO. Right. So he's taking over ETS, which is Sony Corp. At the group level, they are referred to as business CEOs. Business CEOs are just another name for the pay grade of the position that they occupy as heads of those segments. And so there's a list of 8 or 9 business CEOs. They are either heads of segments or they are principal deputies to those. So Herman Holst is a business CEO, but he reports up to Nishino, who's GNNS. So my main point of this is I've seen multiple issues of people attempting to extrapolate this as something that's going on with Totoki and something that impacts PlayStation or GNNS. It does not. It's a dude becoming head of the TV division, right? Is what's going on. Nothing more than that. And
nothing more, nothing less.
It is old news. It was out on the street last fall for people who paid attention. And I know that there are content creators out there trying to use this as a smokescreen to combat all the 3-ring circus that got set off last Friday with the changes in Xbox leadership. No, PlayStation is not going through the same thing that is happening over at Xbox. The mess, the freaking dumpster fire train wreck that's going on over at Xbox is an Xbox thing that is, once again, as we always say with a lot of this stuff in the business, is just Xbox. It is not the rest of the industry.
Yeah, no, I agree 110% Logic. It is just Xbox. No, thanks for that. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just all tangent, but slightly related also. And I just mentioned this because I discovered it myself because I was wrong. Somebody had mentioned it in a Discord and I went and researched it. Just while we're on the topic, let's also straighten up just our understanding of Devin Pritchard over at Nintendo, who is talked about as if she is the next Reggie. She is not Reggie. And again, I found this out. I was wrong too. She is the COO of Nintendo of America. She's actually not the CEO of Nintendo of America, so she is not in Reggie's old job or Doug Bowser's old job, like 1-to-1. There's actually a guy from Japan who is Nintendo of America CEO. And so she's the most senior person in America for Nintendo, but she's not the CEO. Just to make sure that that's understood. And then Furukawa, again, is the group level, corporate level CEO that I think his name is Taneda, reports up to, and then Devin reports up to him.
Now, Logic, thank you for that. I appreciate that insight. And I did pull up the Twitter post you put out there kind of explaining the changes here at Sony. So thank you. Yeah, not surprised that people are putting up smoke screens and putting out misinformation, disinformation around this news story. All right. Anything else, Logic?
No, I'm good, man. I need to I need to go continue grinding at
Yeah, I was
The
gonna say.
Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon.
No, you're even. How many hours are you into that now?
86, I think.
Woo!
So I've got a chapter and a half left in Act 3. A chapter and a half and one more domain in the Grim Garden. I cleared domain 8 in the Grim Garden. There are 9 domains. So I have one more left, and then a chapter and a half left in Act 3.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Today's rant. We'll be back in 48 hours, believe it or not, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Do me a favor. Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone in the live chat who came by and hung out with us this evening. Please do the YouTube thing. Hit the like button if you're new. Consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. Again, we'll be back Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So until then, enjoy the rest of the evening. Have fun playing video games because ultimately that's what it's about. We'll see you Wednesday. Thank you for watching.